I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. We are continuing with Esther. Of course, Esther is now queen, and we had the introduction of Haman, the highest counselor to the king now, and he has put in motion his plot to exterminate the Jews. Chapter 4. Mordecai and the Jews mourn and fast because of the king's decree. Esther, at the peril of her life, goes in unto the king. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Now, it does not specifically state prayer here, but a loud and bitter cry. He is praying, vocally praying to God. Now, the sackcloth and ashes, this is a common sign of mourning in the ancient Middle East. Sackcloth is a very coarse, very uncomfortable fabric, and to wear it is it's an itchy kind of feel. And then the ashes are a sign of death and destruction and all that. So he's in mourning. The Jews throughout the kingdom are in mourning. And when it says a loud and bitter cry, weeping and wailing, these guys are praying. That's what it is. One last thing to note is that he goes to the gate. Remember, he's always at the gate to check on Esther every day. But this time he can't go into the gate because you can't enter the gate in a sackcloth. So while it was a Jewish custom to mourn wearing sackcloth, the Persians apparently didn't like it, and so you couldn't come in. Now, the castle gate would have been the gatehouse. This is the entrance to the palace. It's not just a single gate. This would be a small keep in the wall going into the palace. And this is like in most of the Jewish cities, the city business, the public business was done at the gate of the city, and this is kind of the same thing. Now, the royal business is done in the palace itself, but if you have business with the people, the commoners, the servants and all that, you would come to the gate, and you would do your business there. That's also where you would get news of the palace, and so he would come to the gate, but now he can't go into the gate because he's wearing the sackcloth. Anyways, verse 4. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was and why it was. So Hatak went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to shew it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. So it seems that Esther's maids, her waiting maids, knew Mordecai, or at least knew of him, because they see him in the sackcloth and they tell her about him. Now, if he was just some random guy that they had never met, never heard about, they probably wouldn't have mentioned it to the queen. They may have mentioned it in passing, but this is a obvious thing. They see Mordecai, they recognize who he is, and they go and tell the queen. She then is she's worried that something's happened, that he's in dire straits here, so she sends him some clothes, and he refuses to take them, indicating that he is in mourning. He is sending back his message to her, saying, no, I am doing this on purpose. I am in mourning. That's when she sends the chamberlain to go talk to him, because at this time, the maids would not have been allowed to have an extended conversation with Mordecai. That would have been very improper for the young women to be talking to a man out at the gate. That's why she sends Hatak to get the full story. The maids could go out and offer him the clothes, and he just says no, And he understands the propriety. He didn't tell the maids anything. He understands that propriety. But by rejecting the clothes, he is letting Esther know that something is up. And that's why she goes to Hatak and has Hatak go and get the full story. Because Hatak, he is appointed by the king, so he can talk to the queen just like her maids can. But he can also talk to Mordecai. And so this is how Esther finds out about the decree. She did not know that this decree had gone out yet, because she is in the palace. She's not in the city around the palace. She's not in the common ground. She's not in that area. She doesn't know about this. And so they let her know, and they give her a copy of the decree so that there is no mistaking it. Verse 10. Again Esther spake unto Hatak, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall there enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? So she sends back Mordecai and says, Wait, I can't go into the king. He hasn't called for me in 30 days. If I go in there, I'll be killed. That's the law. Now, some people say that Esther's kind of fallen out of favor. It's been 30 days, a full month, since she's been called to the king. Now, I would point out that this is just, she hasn't been called to the inner court in 30 days. It never says that the king has not come to visit her, only that she has not been called to the court. But in addition, the king is very busy. It's very likely that he's dealing, if this is Xerxes, he's dealing with revolts, rebellions. He does have his campaign against the Greeks that he undergoes, and if it's not Xerxes, if it's one of the Artaxerxes, we still have revolts, various campaigns that go on. So the idea that he hadn't called her to the inner court, maybe he just is using that time to plan his campaigns. And he still goes to her at night. He still visits with her at times. Now, we don't know, maybe they haven't seen each other in a month. But it's not necessarily because they are falling out and she's out of favor. He's just busy. He's the king, and he's ruling over a very large kingdom. But I like Mordecai's reply. If you don't do this, don't think, he kind of reprimands, like, do you think you're going to escape because you're in the palace? No. If you don't do something, you're going to die, and God's going to deliver the Jews in some other way. But have you considered that the reason you're queen, the reason you were brought to this position, is so that you could save your people at this time? So don't think about yourself. Think about what God has planned for you. That's the message, and that's a good message. I like it. Let us finish this out. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. And so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way, and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. So, I like Esther's response here. He gives her the warning and the encouragement. And her response is, okay, I'll do it, but you got to fast for me first. A 3-day fast to give me the courage to get in there and do what I need to do. Get myself right with God, you might say. Align myself to God so that if I do die, I know it's all okay. If I die, I die. If I don't, then I know that God is preserving me. See, God is not directly mentioned anywhere in Esther, but there are so many religious undertones, so many just the way things are worded that clearly show that Esther and Mordecai are both people of great faith. I leave this one here, and we will pick it up in chapter 5.